Uncertainty in Nigeria after over 180 people were kidnapped and 32 people were left dead in a Boko Haram-led raid this week. According to local government officials, women and children were gathered into trucks while men were executed on site. It took almost 4 days for the news of the violence to travel outside of the area due to disabled telecommunication towers. Many who escaped the attack say they have nothing left after militants doused half the village in kerosene before lighting it on fire. The future of the group's captives is unclear. Last year, Boko Haram kidnapped over 200 girls from a school. Later, they admitted to selling most of those girls into slavery. The militant group is one of the world's deadliest terror organizations after being blamed for over 5,000 deaths, according to a U.S. Congressional Research Service report. Just in time for Russian President Vladimir Putin's annual end-of-the-year conference, a new promotion is out. As if Putin was the star of his own movie, the promotional video shows tanks, crying children, the Olympics, and, of course, plenty of the Russian leader himself. At Putin's end-of-the-year conference, he gave a summary of Russia's standing on the Ukraine crisis and the struggling economy. Putin says he is ready to help solve the Ukraine conflict, but continues to deny involvement with pro-Russian separatists. Putin goes on to discuss the economy in Russia, blaming the situation on external factors, and says the growth of the global economy will continue and our economy will rebound from the current situation. Putin has yet to make a decision on whether or not he will be running for Russian president in 2018. Crimea faces a new economic struggle after the European Union makes a major decision this week. The EU has decided to ban any investments into Crimea, causing a large halt on oil and gas exploration in the area. Since the annexation of Crimea from Ukraine, the EU has decided to knuckle down on Russian sanctions. By outlawing investments in Crimea, EU-based companies will be prevented from purchasing real estate, purchasing companies, and even financing Crimean companies. Russian companies are racing to take on Crimea development, including proposals to help develop Crimea's oil and gas sector. Pakistan faces outrage from India after a Pakistan court allows bail for a man accused of a 2008 attack on Mumbai. This ruling comes within the same week as Pakistan's Prime Minister lifts the moratorium on the country's death penalty. Zaki Lakivi is accused of being a top leader of the militant group blamed for the 2008 attack. During the onslaught on Mumbai, the militants spent 3 days causing terror with gunfire and grenades. India's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif says he hopes the Pakistan government will appeal. Pakistan and India have worked to repair relations since the Mumbai attacks. Now Indian officials fear Lakivi's release will hinder those attempts at reconciliation. Emotions run high this week as Cuba and the U.S. rekindle their relationship. During a simultaneous televised event, both President Barack Obama and Cuban leader President Raul Castro announced the end to Cuba's economic embargo. Obama has called the previous Cuban policy outdated and rigid. This announcement comes after the cooperation of a prisoner exchange between the U.S. and Cuba, allowing American citizen Alan Gross to walk a free man for the first time in 5 years. Those planning on traveling to Cuba shouldn't jump for joy just yet. Cuba must agree to terms regarding economic reforms and human rights policy to move forward on policy change. The European Union is calling new diplomatic ties between the U.S. and Cuba a historic turning point. Washington has long been pushed to strengthen ties with Cuba by the European governments in recent years. A former Italian prime minister thanked the Pope Francis for helping mediate the negotiations between Washington and Havana. The EU lifted their sanctions on Cuba back in 2008 due to a cooperation agreement. At the time of their discussion, human rights violations were not part of a discussion Cuba was ready to have. But that is something President Obama has vowed to make leeway on. The Italian Prime Minister also said this week human rights remain at the heart of EU policy towards Cuba. A raid off the Normandy coast led to almost $800,000 worth of cocaine. An arrest was made after almost 9 pounds of cocaine were found by French and Jersey customs. An Irish man was taken into custody and will be tried in a French court. Officials say the investigation is still underway as Jersey authorities continue to search the island. The director for enforcement at Jersey Customs and Immigration called the sweep significant. Jersey, the island right off the coast of Normandy, confiscated over $3 million worth of illegal drugs just this last year. Frustration and fear from moviegoers as Sony Motion Pictures cancels the release of The Interview. The movie is a comedy about the plot to kill North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. A group of hackers recently contacted Sony in broken English, saying, "Remember the 11th of September 2001? We recommend you to keep yourself distant from the places at the time." North Korea has denied all accusations, accusing them of hacking into the production company, but experts are pointing fingers at the country. South Korean officials say the codes used to hack into Sony are similar to North Korea's previous attempts to hack into their systems. Multiple Hollywood stars have spoken out against Sony pulling the movie, calling it a victory for hackers and a sad day for creative expression.